Hi there, my name is David Polly. I'm a paleontologist at Indiana University, and I'm going to talk to you today about the paleontology of Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument, something that I have been educated on by many of my colleagues who work there in the field. I'm going to start with geological time, introducing you to it. This is a time column by Ray Troll showing the oldest to the youngest periods of geological time, which are the Paleozoic, colloquially known as the age of fishes, the Mesozoic, the age of dinosaurs, and the Cenozoic, the age of mammals, the last 65 million years. Those time periods are divided roughly by some major extinctions. At the end of the Cretaceous, 65 million years ago, is when the famous asteroid caused the extinction of the dinosaurs and many other organisms. Lesser known at the beginning of the Mesozoic was the Permian-Triassic mass extinction, which, even though it is lesser known, is the more important of them because it killed almost all of life on Earth. And Grand Staircase-Escalante, the rocks there, roughly represent the Mesozoic and the very end of the Permian before that Permian-Triassic mass extinction. If you were to take a cross-section through southern Utah, you would see something like this with layers of rock, some of which have been folded and faulted and so on, and the topography cuts through them, exposing rocks of different ages in the National Monument there. And here you see sort of the stair steps of the Grand Staircase. If you were to look at a map and plot out the age of the rocks there, you would see that they conform to these ages. Permian rocks are down here and over here in the Circle Cliffs area, Triassic in those same areas, Jurassic either over here in the east or here in the Escalante Canyons area, and the Cretaceous especially exposed in the Kaparovitz Plateau. You'll notice there's a fault here that separates the younger Cretaceous from the older Permian and Triassic, and if you drive along Cottonwood Wash Road, you will see the upthrust of that fault in what is often called the coxcomb. Almost all of Grand Staircase is fossiliferous. There are at least 3,000 scientifically important localities that have been found there. Almost all of the geological units or beds or formations, as we call them, are fossiliferous. And sort of going up through time, in the oldest rocks, we have life before that major mass extinction. In the purple rocks of the Triassic, we have some of the recovery of life with fossil forest, crazy proto-dinosaurs and proto-mammals that lived there. The Jurassic, as we'll see in a moment, is largely sandstones and has lots of trackways of early relatives of mammals and the earliest dinosaurs and their kin. And the Cretaceous is one of the great features of Grand Staircase-Escalante, with many dinosaurs, plesiosaurs, mosasaurs, ammonites, and mammals and other organisms, including plants, are found there. Just taking you on a brief tour, when the geological history of Grand Staircase started, the world was very different. It was the end of the Permian period. You're seeing here about 260 million years ago. And what is now Utah was on the coast of the Panthalastic Ocean, the largest ocean the Earth has ever known, sort of the Proto-Pacific, if you will. If we zoom in on that, in Permian time, most of southern Utah, most of Utah itself, was in a shallow sea right on that coast, and a lot of the fossils that we find there, like the stromatolite, were found in a marine realm. As we pass through that major mass extinction to the other side, in this history, we're getting a lot of Western North America added. You're starting to see some of Nevada here. There's no California, but by this time, southern Utah was landlocked. There were major river systems flowing through, organisms like this early archosaur or the sort of relative of mammals, Caantotherium, that you see here. The rocks in Grand Staircase that bear some of these fossils are such as this at Circle Cliffs. These are Triassic rocks in floodplains of that major river. Here is a fossil tree trunk, one of the largest petrified forest outside of Petrified Forest National Park was found there, and a lot of really spectacular fossils like this skull of an animal that's not yet been described, that is probably somewhere near the ancestry of modern crocodiles and dinosaurs. As we move up through time, up into the Jurassic period, this area is becoming more landlocked, drier, and so on. And there were major dunes, deserts here, with dunes kind of like the Sahara. A lot of the rocks you see in the Escalante canyons area, and somewhat places in the west of the monument have these giant cross-bed structures that you see here, these diagonal things, which are the markers of ancient sand dune systems. And landscapes like this are composed of those sandstones, including the Navajo sandstone. In this area, there are a lot of trackways. This one is what is called Anomopus, probably an early ornithopod or duck-billed dinosaur. And then as we come up in the later part of the geological story of Grand Staircase, we get into the late Cretaceous, the spectacular sequence at Grand Staircase from this time period. And at this point, we've almost reversed the geography of the sea, so that Utah here is now on the western side of the interior seaway, with giant mountains off to the west. It's at this time that many of the spectacular dinosaur discoveries from Grand Staircase are known, including a lot of carnivorous dinosaurs like Teratophonius and Lythronax, a whole bunch of ceratopsians, some armored dinosaurs, and etc. Here's one of them, Diabloceratops, this specimen housed now in the Utah Museum of Natural History. And of this spectacular wall of ceratopsians at that museum, the ones that are labeled here are all discoveries in Grand Staircase: Nasutoceratops, Diabloceratops, Utaceratops, Cosmoceratops, and there are probably more to come. The landscape at this time was coastal floodplain. Here you see some of those dinosaurs in a reconstruction by Rural Martin of what this landscape looked like. But one of the important scientific things of Grand Staircase is not just these dinosaurs, but all of the little things. This is the period when flowering plants were first becoming known. Early mammals were diversifying, early birds were diversifying, and the origins of our modern ecosystems occurred here. And we know a lot about that time period from Grand Staircase. Here's one of the tiny, tiny little mammal teeth that's found in the late Cretaceous. And in fact, the first discoveries there that were scientifically important were these tiny mammals. And those discoveries were in part some of the scientific reason for establishing the monument in the first place in the mid-90s. So talking about science and preservation at the monument for just a moment. What is distinctive about a national monument? Its uses are restricted. Its land use is prioritized to protect the resources that were named in the proclamation, which in this case include paleontological resources, and that conservation not only protects them from damage, but it conserves them to maintain and enhance their value, and it facilitates appropriate access to realize their value. And the scientific importance of a fossil, or the scientific life cycle of it, usually we start with a scientific question, like what happened after a mass extinction, or what was life before the asteroid hit. Like we go to the field, do field collecting. Fossils are taken out of the field. They're prepared in a lab. They are described, they're studied, and they're published, which makes them available to the public and to other scientists. And they're put in a fossil repository where scientists or the public can come visit them again and again, restudy, redescribe them, and use them over and over, which is an important part of conservation of fossil resources. And Grand Staircase-Escalante has sometimes been called the Science Monument or the Paleontology Monument, and a lot of work has gone on to conserving fossils, and you see a few photographs of that here, including this airlift of a Teratophonius fossil, a big carnivorous dinosaur that was found in the area, but up on the Kaparawitz Plateau, which was inaccessible, so it's being airlifted out, where it's then taken to the museum to prepare out and study. And major museums, especially the Utah Museum of Natural History in Salt Lake City, have important collections of fossils from Grand Staircase-Escalante, including these several drawers here being shown to me by Randall Ermis, who is the curator there. Having fossils not only in the field but in repositories like this is critically important because they are the vouchers whereby scientific verification takes place. So if somebody has made a discovery, scientists later may need to go back and verify that, recheck it, maybe reinterpret what happened. And to do that, fossils are placed in repositories like this. They are numbered, they're published, and if you look at a scientific publication on, for example, a ceratopsian, you will see illustrations of the features that diagnose it, that are important for its interpretation, etc. And that scientific publication will be laced with little numbers like these highlighted on the screen, showing which museum it came from, what its catalog number is, so that they can be found and restudied. One of the important things scientifically about Grand Staircase-Escalante is the paleontology, and this map shows two things that are really important for conservation and preservation of paleontological resources there. First, all of the little yellow dots are locations of sites that have been determined to have scientifically important paleontological resources. And by that, I mean not just a scrap of a fossil, but something that is in context, new, extends our knowledge about something about past life in some way or the other. And there are literally thousands that have been discovered so far. And then sort of circling around the outside of this are examples of things that are found there. Pilot Knoll, for example, where a new ceratopsian dinosaur was found from the Walweep Formation that's been published by Dept et al. In 2013, or an area in the Straight Cliffs where magnetostratigraphy, a way of determining the ages of fossils, took place by Albright and Titus, or Bulldog Bench, where Cinnamanian mammals, amphibians, lizards, etc. were found in the Dakota Formation, published by Jeff Eaton in 1993 and Rochek et al. Later. And notice the date on that. Some of these sites up here with early mammals were one of the reasons that Grand Staircase-Escalante was established. We've barely scratched the surface. Most of the monument has not been surveyed for fossils yet, and the Bureau of Land Management uses a shorthand for determining whether there are likely to be fossils here. And you see the background map color-coded from 5, the highest, to blue, the lowest. You'll notice you don't see any blue in Grand Staircase-Escalante because almost all of it is very fossiliferous. The least likely places to find fossils are in some of the very vertical sandstones, but especially up in the Kaparowitz Plateau and the Circle Cliffs, and down here in the western part of the monument, it's very high likelihood to find paleontological resources. And some of the conservation issues that sort of ongoing are continuing to inventory, continue to explore, identify important sites, start to conserve them, get scientists in to study them, to, if necessary, take them from the field, take the fossils from the field, study them, publish them, and recover what we can know from this incredible monument. If you're interested in learning more about the paleontology at Grand Staircase-Escalante, I can refer you to 2 major works. The one on the left, 2013, by Krista Sadler, where some of the pictures in this presentation have come from, called Where Dinosaurs Roamed, Paleontology of Grand Staircase. It's written for a general audience, but it's actually technical enough, or not technical enough, I shouldn't say, but detailed enough that it's interesting even to professional paleontologists like me. The one on the right is aimed at a more scientific audience, but if you're interested in some of the primary descriptions and interpretations, particularly of the late Cretaceous part of the monument, I refer you to this book, At the Top of the Grand Staircase, edited by Ellen Titus and Mark Lowen. So thank you very much. Again, I thank all of my colleagues who have taught me a lot about what happens at Grand Staircase, and I'm pleased to take questions.